Your competitive advantage is temporary. Innovation without customer focus, and you might be solving the wrong problems. Here are 3 guiding principles which will help you get more in touch with your customers and increase the revenue that you get from them. In 1960, Theodore Levitt wrote an HBO article called Marketing Myopia. It is timeless. It is still relevant today. In parts 1 and 2, which was the first podcast, we focused on the product and also having a narrow definition. What problem does your customer really need to be solved? Today, we're going to focus on innovation and customer focus. What you think is your greatest strength today might not be in the future and might lead to your greatest downfall. Let's start with the most dangerous one. You don't think there's a competitor out there, or you don't understand the competition. There is a printer who's been in business 25 years, had a solid customer base, thought the customer was loyal. They had a minimum printing of 10,000 units, which was to help keep costs down. That provided the customers with the most value. In the course of 4 years, the overall revenue was down 55%. Why? New market entrants, Gelato, Printful. What did they do? You could do small batch orders of 100. You could personalize them and make quick changes and get that over to the printer and they ship it out to you. What did the customer think? Great. I'm paying a little bit more, but now I don't have 10 to 20 boxes I need to store. And what happens if the data becomes stale overnight or it changes? It wasn't. The problem was customers wanted not to store full 10, 20 boxes in the warehouse, and they wanted to be able to customize it, maybe for a run of a few hundred. They were willing to pay a little bit more cost. When they made the pivot, what did they find? Revenues increased 40% in 1 year. The question isn't who else prints. The question is, what problem am I solving for the customer, and how do I do it better than the competition? Let me give you another example. There was a property management company. They had 80 properties. They charged an industry standard 8 to 10%. They prided themselves in personalized service, and they did a phenomenal job. What happened? They lost 35 properties in 3 years. Was it to another competitor? No. It was to smart locks, smart thermostats, and many things going online. What did the owners want? There were no awkward key handoffs. They were able to see who was coming and going with video doorbells, and they're able to see how the thermostat was being used. Yes, getting the payment notification and sending out late notices were great, but the owners found they could do this themselves with other services. So what used to cost them $1,200 a month now was costing them $100 to $200 a month. The technology shifted, and so did the customer. The management company thought they had no substitutes. They provided personal service, but their customers weren't buying a warm handshake. They were buying, handle the hassles so I don't have to. And with real-time updates to see maybe someone's hosting a party there that shouldn't be hosting a party, they were able to tackle some of these issues a lot faster than the rental management company after the fact. They didn't think they had a competitor, but their competitor was new technology coming on the market and not staying up with those trends. Their customers wanted less hassles, not 100% personal service. Remember, your competitive advantage is temporary. Someone is always asking, how can we deliver this service in a different way and cheaper? So you need to ask yourself, what is the new innovation that I need to take a look at where my customers might like, where I can provide better value than doing it yourself? So what outcome are you delivering? Ask yourself, what problem am I really solving for my customers? And is there a different, more efficient way to do this with the technology that is coming onto the market? So tenet number 3 was thinking you have no competition, and that your competitive advantage will maintain over the years. Let's talk about tenet number 4, faith in selling versus marketing. This is one of my biggest hangups. Marketing is not selling. Selling is a part of marketing. Selling is the promotional aspect of marketing. Let's take a look at IT service provider. They were very big on cybersecurity. They had 3 salespeople. They were calling 60 calls a day each, trying to sign up companies in their region. The overall conversion rate, 2%, which is kind of standard for cold calling. Now let's take a look at another IT service provider in the area. They didn't have really a cold calling system. They had salespeople, but they focused on doing a weekly newsletter, showing the latest cyber attack and how to prevent it. They had quarterly webinars where they went deep dived into what is your security risk. They had a free assessment to take about your risk. So you could see where was your risk. What was the result? They had 15 to 20 warm leads each month. And those warm lead conversion rates were ranging in the 30 to 35% range. Why was this different? Because they built trust. They help people understand. Selling is pushing the product. Marketing is pulling. Help them understand why your customers need this product. It might be a blind spot they did not know. Here's another example. My son went to a camp once, and when he came home, he commented several times, "Dad, I miss flavor." I asked him what was wrong. The camp had a cafeteria. It must have got the gold medal for serving the blandest food. He did not realize how much he appreciated flavor until it was taken from him. But just think of your customers. They might be eating bland food all the time and not know the difference until you show them something flavorful, something that gets them excited to help understand the product. That's the difference between marketing and selling. Marketing really dives in, trying to focus on what are those unmet needs that my customers want. They don't even know themselves that they need. Your job is, how do I help find that flavor for them so they're excited, so they see the difference in what you're offering to what someone else is. Getting online today, doing newsletters, doing YouTube videos, hosting a podcast, it's not as expensive as it once was. It's called educating your marketplace, which is much different than cold calling. Cold calling, you have 30 seconds or less to help hit it off with a customer. Marketing, you bring them in. You make them want more. You help them understand why this is important. So there's a huge difference between marketing and selling. So what did this first managed service provider do? They changed their tactics. They help customers understand what you need to know about cybersecurity. What are the modern trends? What did they end up happening? Inbound leads were up 300%, and ultimately revenue doubled within 2 years. Why? Is they focused on building trust with their customers instead of always pushing the sales tactics. You have to help the customer understand why your product is better than what they are doing today. Here's another example of marketing versus selling. There was an independent insurance broker. They focused on liability and work person's comp. They were pushing sales. What happened? Their conversion rate was less than 1%. Why? It's because they were competing on price. They pivoted. One, they did a case study and showed how one customer who was underinsured picked the wrong insurance and it cost them $300,000 on a case. They wrote case studies helping them see what are the potential gaps and how to solve those gaps in insurance. What happened? They stopped 100% competing on price. Their clients coming in were more warm. They valued proper coverage. They did not want to be caught unaware of what they could do. What happened from this is they turned it around. They were closing 35 to 50 new clients a month. Their conversion rates were going through the roof, and their clients stayed with them longer than before, and they bought more. Why? Because they trusted the broker. Learning from other people's experiences is a great lesson. I had another franchisee tell me about how the laws changed in California on paying their employees. He didn't take heed to that. What was the ultimate cost? A lawsuit, several hours dealing with lawyers, and ultimately a $200,000 settlement, not counting the lawyer's cost. Why? Because they didn't understand the law and they were not following it on how to pay customers appropriately. What did I do when I had a franchise? I learned from it. I adapted new policies so I didn't have that problem. If I never learned about his pain, I would never have known how to avoid it in the future. So for a lot of this, business owners, help people understand the failures, not just the successes. That's where you get the pull effect instead of the push effect. You always want the pull effect to happen because the customers are warmer. They're leaning into what you already have to say. The difference between selling and marketing. Your sales are going to be more effective when you have a better marketing. And finally, marketing is not just promotion. It's getting the product right, the price right, and the placement right. If you don't have those right, your promotion is going to fall flat. You have to ask yourself, like we've mentioned several different times, what business are you really in? Are you just providing the cheapest liability and work person's coverage? Or are you trying to help your client avoid huge bills in the future because they are underinsured? Selling is trying to convince someone to buy something. Marketing is helping them understand why they need to purchase your product. Marketing will always win. So ask yourself, what would you change if you try to stop selling and try to educate your customers on what they needed to do? How would you do this differently? What messages would you get out to them? Tenet number 5, innovation without customer focus. Building cool tools that customers don't really want. There was a cabinet maker. They decided to upgrade the cabinets and upgrade the showroom. So they got wood samples from 6 different continents. Guess there's no wood in Antarctica, so there had to be 6. They upgraded the showroom with the latest technology LEDs, and they started pushing that with customers. They went for a higher price point, but their customers didn't value that. What ended up happening is over 3 years, their overall revenue was down 55%. Clients were ghosting them on comparative bids. Why? Is they never truly understood what the customers valued. Another cabinet maker in the same city. What did they do differently? They first asked the customer, okay, you want cabinets in your kitchen. What is the most frustrating thing about your current cabinets? They listened. What did they learn? They wanted things more functional. They still wanted them to look good, but they didn't need the exotic woods. They wanted pull-out spice cabinets. They wanted revolving lazy Susans. They wanted drawers with multiple layers that they could close that would handle with compartments. They weren't looking for fancy wood and LEDs. They were looking for functionality. The first customer focused on, hey, I can drive higher sales by being a little bit more fancy. The second cabinet maker focused on, help me understand why you're currently frustrated and let me go fix that. And then we can talk about a couple upgrades on wood if you want, but it was more about the functionality and that they truly listen to clients. Cool features are great, but do your customers really value them? Talking with your customers and listening to your customers are great feedback loops, but just don't do it to 1 or 2. Don't do it to your loudest customers, because sometimes the loudest are not your best customers. Your best customers sometimes are the quietest, and you need to really get down and ask them questions that make them think, not give you yes, no. Like, what is the current most frustrating thing about your cabinets? Listen, ask for questions. That's what you need to innovate on. So don't innovate in a vacuum. Ask yourself this, is the customer really complaining about this feature or needing this feature? Or am I thinking the customer needs this feature? Don't innovate in a vacuum. Talk with your customers. Drive them to the next level of understanding of where they're frustrated with the current product and innovate around that. Let's give another example of innovation gone awry. There was a boutique fitness studio that spent $80,000 in the latest technology. They got the latest machines in, they had fitness trackers, they posted online, people could see, they showed who the leaderboard was. Their membership retained flat. Some people loved the new equipment. Another fitness studio took a new approach. They used the same equipment, but they did a whiteboard and they did shout outs to who was doing well, not who the leader was. They showed people on their improvement, not who the leader was lifting the most, but how many people improved on a percentage. It felt less cumbersome. What was the result of this? Their membership increased by 45%. The retention rate was 85% because they had a very personalized space. People didn't feel judged. That's what the customers wanted. They wanted connection. They told their friends. Their friends started to go because they saw the difference in them. It wasn't just about weight loss. It was about toning and improving overall health. And they had a connection. They did coffee socials. They figured out their customers wanted connection, not just the latest technology. Sometimes technology is great, but sometimes it might make you miss the mark. Understand what your customers want. People wanted a place to belong and where people notice when I show up, and people care about my next steps, not who is the best on the leaderboard. Innovation without customer focus is just an expensive experiment that usually does not work. Ask yourself, what is my customer really looking for, and does this innovation enhance it, or is it meh? If it's meh, don't do it. If it enhances this and enhances their experience, it's something to look into. But also experiment with innovation. Don't try to do everything all at once. Do it little by little, and you'll see what your customers like when you communicate with them. I'm Brandon Fears. This is SMB Growth Unlimited, where we focus on SMBs and how they can scale faster than their competitors. Here's a quick recap of the 3 tenets we covered today. First, your competitive advantage is temporary. Ask yourself, what is different coming onto the market, and can this solve my customer's problem more effectively than what I'm offering today? Tenet 4, stop selling and start marketing. Are you educating your customers so they're pulling your solution, where they're reaching out to you instead of you pushing the solution to them? And finally, innovation without customer focus is a recipe for disaster. Focus on what are the customer needs. Ask your customers, what's the most frustrating thing about X? What do you want to change? What do you wish you could change? Put a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Which of these 5 tenets hit hardest for you? 1, narrowing the definition. 2, focusing on the customer. 3, your competitive advantage is temporary. 4, selling versus marketing. And 5, innovation without customer focus. I'm Brandon Fierce, and this is SMB Growth Unlimited. Hit subscribe so you're aware of our next podcast. Also, if you want to book time with me for a 15-minute free consult, the link is down below. Also, we also have an AI prompt guide to really discover what business you are in so that you're not blindsided or plateau, and so you can get ahead of the competition.